Being 7 o'clock, we'll call the Marathon County Board of Supervisors to order, please, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing. That will be followed by a moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned organizational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse, Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019, at 7 p.m. to consider the items that were listed on the agenda, and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to request everyone please silence your cell phones and or any other electronic devices, please, and we will proceed to roll call. Please sign in. And we will proceed. And I'd like to welcome all of the visitors that we have this evening. We do have a full agenda, and so without further ado, we will move on to the consent agenda. There has been a request that item number 10, the appointment to the Diversity Affairs Commission, be pulled and dealt with as a separate issue. And so items 7B, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13. What is the board's pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Langenhahn and second by Supervisor Gums. Any discussion on those consent agenda items? Okay. Any questions on those consent agenda items? Asking one more time. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Now we have item 10, appointment to the Diversity Affairs Commission. Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg and second by Supervisor Budke. Any discussion? Supervisor Zerini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like some background on the appointment from the administrator.
I relied upon a recommendation of Mr. Yiling Shang, who talked to a constituent and thought this would be a person who's both interested and well qualified to represent the LGBTQ plus community. Yiling's here.
Okay, Supervisor Nutting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How long has this individual been a resident of the local community, please?
Brad, you...
I think you might want to ask Yiling. I don't know. I think it's a short period.
I actually do not know the answer as well either. I know that she moved into the western area, but I think she's been here for a short time. But for a short time.
Hold it over next month. I'll get a resume.
Okay, Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just asked for the committee, the board here to approve her, India Miller to the Diversity Affairs Commission. I feel with her experience and also her being a member of the LGBTQ community, that will further help us ensure the Marathon County is a welcoming, inclusive community.
Okay, any other questions on the motion? Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Seiler, confirm, and Supervisor Draybeck, please vote and confirm. And Supervisor Miller, please vote and confirm. There we go, and we will proceed. And the motion is carried. And now, item number C, if somebody would kind as to read item number C, the motion to go into closed session. Supervisor Langenhan.
I suppose I got to speak into the mic too, don't I? Yeah. All right. Motion to go into closed session. Roll call vote suggested. The board will consider a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to 19851E Wisconsin statutes, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and Wisconsin statutes sections 19851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to discuss with legal counsel present by telephone the strategies associated with the potential resolution of a potential claim against the county by an employee over which the board has authority. The board may authorize certain action in closed session to be taken by board leadership in relation to negotiation, position, or strategy. The board will reconvene in closed session immediately following the reconvene in open session immediately following the closed session and take action if needed on any matter discussed in closed session. I move to make that.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Supervisor Schaefer. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried, but not unanimous. So we will be in closed session. I'm going to have to ask all of the audience to excuse themselves at this time. Make a announcement that there is no announcements out of the closed session. And so we'll move on to item number F, denial of claim number 14, CMD, Melinda Young and Billy Davis. Motion by Supervisor Tremelling and motion to deny. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Schaefer. Any discussion on the denial or question? Supervisor Seiler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I need to recuse myself from this portion. My Burnett Bus is affiliated with Progressive Travel, who is my husband's employer. Thank you.
Okay, you're permitted to abstain. Supervisor Gumbs. Supervisor Gumbs is permitted to abstain. Any other discussion on those two that agenda item? Item denial of claim, CMD, Melinda Young and Billy Davis. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Tremelling, could you vote and confirm? Thank you, and we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, unanimous with 2 abstentions. Item G, appointment to Rules Review Committee.
You want me to read?
Yes, please.
I, Kurt Gibbs, Chairperson of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, do hereby, upon approval of the board, appoint and reappoint the following to serve on the County Board Rules Review Committee for the residue of the term ending April 2020. Supervisor Craig McEwen, Supervisor Jacob Langenhan, Supervisor Romy Wagner, Supervisor Jeff Srini, Supervisor Randy Friffrick, Supervisor Tim Butke, and Supervisor John Robinson.
Supervisor Schaefer with the motion and Supervisor Seefeld with the second. Any discussion on the appointments to the Rules Review Committee? Any discussion? By rule, the vice chair is the chair of that committee. So by our own rules. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Resolutions from Forestry Recreation Committee, Environmental Resources Committee, and the Human Resources Finance and Property Committee approving an application to acquire state funding through the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant Program, Resolution 32-19. Motion by Supervisor Durham and second by Supervisor Bovee. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Item I, Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, item number 17, approved 2019 budget transfers from Marathon County Department of Appropriations, Resolution 37-19. And we have motion by Supervisor Stark and second by Supervisor White. Any discussion on those budget transfers? This does require a 2/3 majority of the board present. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Item J, Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, Environmental Resources and Parks Commission, item number 18, to create one part-time .06 FTE motorized recreational coordinator position, Resolution 38-19. Supervisor Budke with the motion and Supervisor Wagner with the second. Any discussion? 0.6 FTE. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Schaefer, could you confirm? Thank you, and we'll proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to item K, Extension Education and Economic Development Committee and Diversity Affairs Commission. Item number 19, a motion to reconsider declaring June as Pride Month in Marathon County, Resolution 33-19, requested by Supervisor Beestrom, who voted in the prevailing side at previous voting meeting held 6/25/19. Is there Supervisor Beestrom?
Do I need to make the motion verbally?
Yes.
Okay. Then I move to reconsider the resolution declaring June as Pride Month in Marathon County.
Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Zareni. Any discussion?
Point of order.
Point of order.
The motion is out of order for a number of reasons, and I'm going to delineate those for you. But before I go into that, I would like to bring up that the board voted on the rules of order for the conducting of this meeting when this present board, as currently constituted, was first seated in 2018. I reviewed those rules are posted on the website, on the county website, which is a great thing. And in the rules, it states that we will follow Robert's Rules of Order. It does not list any exceptions for prior practice, recommendations from NACO, recommendations from WCA. The only exception, which is specifically delineated, is that the county board chairman is allowed to participate in discussions. Other than that, we are bound by Robert's rules, per our own rules. It does not matter what any other prior board, as previously constituted, did, because we voted to adopt those rules. That is where we are now. Now, the reason I say that it is out of order, and I'm going to get the exact wording here, is the purpose of reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since the taking of the vote. None of those are present. We had lengthy discussion in a subcommittee, in a standing committee, and before the full board. There was nothing hasty about it. It was very deliberative. There was public input, and it was passed appropriately. Now, secondly, a motion to reconsider must be made at the meeting at which the motion is passed, not the next meeting. The only exception is for conventions where you have multi-day meetings stretching over the length of the convention. Say if it's a 3-day convention, it could be brought back in day 2 or day 3 because the meeting was never adjourned, it was only recessed. In this case, our June meeting, it was passed. Meeting ended, we adjourned, meeting is over. A motion to reconsider is therefore out of order. There is no exception for, well, we only meet once a month. That rule does not exist. Quite frankly, we've also taken some action. We declared June Pride Month. As stated in Robert Rules, if you've taken any partial action, an order to reconsider is not in order because June has come and gone. We've had Pride Month. We can't rescind it. It's already happened. We can't reconsider it. It's already done. So for those 3 reasons, I would ask that the chair rule the motion out of order because it does not meet those criteria and we don't get to make up new rules. That's what it says. So I would hope you would rule in accordance with Robert's Rules, which is our governing rules for running this meeting, and find the motion out of order. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. And I will allow Corp Counsel to respond to all of those points, and at the end, I will rule.
So my response to each one, I specifically put the standard that you quoted in the email that I sent to all the supervisors on Friday. And I think that the motion is in order to allow the moving parties to try to make their case that it was a hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or to take into account added information.
We'll have decorum in here, please. or I will have you removed. Thank you.
And let me repeat, I think the motion is in order to allow the moving parties to attempt to make their case. But that is specifically why I cited the standard when I wrote to you, so that you would all have a basis for making a decision on that motion. The second issue is that we have always, in Marathon County, interpreted sessions to be a 2-year period. And my predecessors have opined that, and so have I. And so Marathon County meetings of the county board, the session begins in April after the election, and it ends in March prior to the next election. They are 2-year sessions, so we do qualify as having as meeting the criteria under Roberts. What it says is, and again, this is not a social club. This is a governmental entity. And it says, in a convention or session of more than one day, a reconsideration can be moved only on the same day the original vote was taken or on the next succeeding day within the session on which a business meeting is held. And so we did receive the written notice of the intent to bring the motion, and it was brought prior to the education meeting, but it was brought less than 24 hours before that education meeting. And again, as I've indicated in my email to all of you, not only are we bound by Robert's rules, but we also are bound by federal law and state statute. And state statute requires that the public be notified 24 hours before a discussion is held on the agenda unless there's an emergency. And I don't believe that there was an emergency on Thursday. I believe that the request had come in and that the first meeting that we could provide 24-hour notice to the public was this meeting today. So my opinion to the chair is that the motion is in order.
And that is my ruling.
I appeal, and I appeal on this basis. Corporate counsel did not address the issue of action already been taken. There already has action been taken. It's already
All right,
occurred.
we will
Robert,
address
no,
that
let me finish,
response.
please. Let me finish, please. Robert's rules clearly states that if an action is taken, this is out of order in order to rescind. Now, if someone wanted to make an order to rescind, that would be an order. But a motion to reconsider is not in order because action has already been taken. We declared June Pride Month. June has come and gone. We can't undo it. I don't have a time machine.
That's enough. We will answer the question.
Well, and so the response to that question is that that's right. No action by the board tonight is going to undo June 2019 as Pride Month. That has happened as a result of the vote. That cannot be undone. But there are several aspects of the resolution that have an ongoing effect. Primarily, there was a specific amendment offered that said we would have to renew it every year, and that amendment was roundly defeated by this board, indicating that essentially every June is going to be Pride Month going forward. I believe that policy can be reconsidered. Furthermore, there are other action steps that were specifically appended to the resolution, calling for education of the board and calling for the administrator to take specific actions. And those also have specific prospective effect. And so I believe that those issues can also be reconsidered. I would just read to you, I believe that you're mistaken. Robert says on actions that cannot be rescinded or amended, when something has been done as a result of a vote on the main motion, that is impossible to undo. And you yourself has said that it's impossible to undo June of 2019 as Pride Month. So I respectfully believe that this motion for reconsideration is in order, and can be voted on. But I
Okay.
also understand your right to appeal that ruling, and I respect that.
And so the ruling is that this motion is in order as per Roberts, as per Corp Council's definitions.
And I appeal that to the entire board.
Requires a second.
Okay, is there a second to the appeal? There is a second to the appeal. Discussion?
Yes, it is debatable.
It is debatable. So is,
It is. You can debate it.
okay. Supervisor Langenhan.
Well, first of all, Mr. Chair, before the closed session, I had a much better mic than this one. It's like busted. Okay, I didn't originally intend to speak on this, but I do have a comment. So I believe that if our corporation counsel is advising you that this is well within your powers, the choice is up to you. That's all I'll say. If the corp counsel says we can, that's his opinion. I'm going to stand by his opinion.
Supervisor Robinson.
So I'm seeking a point of clarification on this. So basically, as I understand it, for 2019, we have June as Pride Month under all conditions, because that was an action that was taken, and we turned the page in the calendar, and because of that, we will forever be on record as a board as supporting June as Pride Month minimally for 2019. Is that correct?
That's my opinion. That's my belief.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to revisit something that Corp Counsel brought up. In a convention or session of more than one day, a reconsideration can be moved only on the same day of the original vote was taken or on the next succeeding day within the session. That would have been, the next succeeding day was our informational meeting last Thursday. We met on Thursday. That was the next succeeding meeting. It didn't get done in a timely fashion because it didn't allow for notice. That's an error on the motion maker's part, that it didn't have time. It didn't meet the requirement of being presented on the very next business session. It did not happen. Because of that, it's not valid. It doesn't follow the rules.
Well,
So, no, I'm not discussing. I have the floor now. I'm not asking any questions. So it does not meet that requirement. And it's still, Robert's Rules doesn't say anything about the section, I'm on page 319, paragraph C, it specifically cites any vote which caused something to be done that is impossible to undo. It is impossible. We all agree. We can't go back and undesignate June 2019. We cannot do that. So on those very bases, the motion is out of order. There's no question. It's black and white. It is clear. Interpretations aside, it states what it states, and it's there for a reason. It's there so people follow the proper procedure, because we have to have proper procedure, and we all have to follow it. If we don't, we can't make up rules as we go along. And as far as designating the entire 2-year cycle of this board as one session, that is highly specious, because we adjourn. We don't recess in between meetings. We adjourn. And because we adjourn, they are separate meetings. They are separate sessions. Regardless of what NACO or WCA says, it's a separate standalone meeting because they were opened, they were adjourned, done and over with. It's not an ongoing process over 2 years. I think that is a stretch to be kind. And I just don't think this motion was properly made. It was not timely. We can't undo things. Therefore, I believe the chair's ruling that it is in order should be overruled, and we should let this go away for the benefit of everybody in the county, please. Thank you.
Well, it is the will of this board, and the board will have its say. And you have heard the rationale and that has been used throughout as to why this motion was in order. And so we will move to the next requested speaker, Supervisor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hoping I can ask Corporation Counsel for some clarification on something. And you actually brought it up, so I'm glad you did. It's something that's a little concerning, just that the original resolution did have action items in it. It had action steps, and some of them are actually already in the works. And you had mentioned educational sessions for the full board. I know that 3 that I know of that are in the works, one that actually talks about just the vocabulary of diversity and equality and equity. There's one that talks about the history of the Hmong population in Wausau, and then another one that talks about the history of indigenous peoples. I'm concerned that if we reconsider this and then end up getting rid of voting down the original resolution, do those actions then also go away with it?
My response would be that if they haven't happened yet, and if the policy that drives them is removed, they would go away.
Okay, because
At least as official action. I can't speak for administration or any other organization that is planning on providing education, but as an initiative within this resolution, it would go away.
all right. I guess my thought on that is, to have some education and training on things like that is probably not the worst thing that could happen to this board. And so I would, strongly encourage that we continue moving forward so that we can have what we originally wanted to have, which was to have some more education of this group.
Supervisor Langenhan.
Call the question.
Is there an objection to question being called?
People still on board? I object. I think
They will be recognized. I asked the question, is there any objection to question being called? Our rules require that I recognize the individuals that are still on the board, and they will be recognized. Is there any objection to question being called? With no objection, question has been called. We will proceed to a vote after the 2 individuals that are on the board recognized and giving their time allowed to speak. Supervisor Pfeffrick.
Jake beat me to it. I was just going to call question as well.
Supervisor Krause.
Thank you. It would seem to me that if a session is 2 years, when we started in 2000, when we were voted in a year ago, that the next session then would be for the next board group that's voted in. If it's 2 years, then for this session, the next session would be when we're up for vote again for the next 2 years.
Correct, 2020.
Okay. The motion on the floor is question's been called. All those in favor of ending debate?
No, it's been called, so we don't need to vote.
We don't need to, okay. We will then move to the vote on the chair's ruling as to whether or not the motion to reconsider is in order or the motion to reconsider is out of order. The chair has ruled, and we're going to the body to decide whether or not they uphold the chair's ruling or overturn the chair's ruling that the motion's in order. So I vote sustains the chair's ruling that the motion is in order. A no vote overturns the chair and says that the motion is out of order. So an aye vote is for affirmative, affirming the chair is correct in its ruling. A no is saying that the chair is not in order. Is everybody clear on the way they wish to vote? Is everybody clear on the motion? Okay, we will proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried. The chair's ruling is sustained. The motion is in order. Any further discussion on the motion to reconsider? The motion is first to just reconsider, to bring back to the table the discussion about the resolution. So that's the motion before you at this point. Is there any discussion?
Tell them to stop.
Don't anybody press any buttons. Please, the clerk has to make an adjustment.
Okay, now.
Okay, Supervisor Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little concerned about not allowing the public to speak. I understand it's our board rule. So I have a list of 6 people who have emailed me and they would like to speak, and I would like to give them an opportunity. So I don't know how we want to do this, if you want to go one at a time or if I give you the list.
It's your choice. You can do whatever. All right, we will vote on them one at a time. So that is the ruling of the chair. Will rule each individual requested to you are requesting to speak will be asked of the body if there's any objection. If there's an objection, then there will be a vote, and the vote will prevail on that individual.
Okay.
Okay, we'll deal with the request that's on the floor. Supervisor Rosenberg, you have the floor, so your request.
All right, my first request is for Autumn Prozuk to speak.
Is there any objection by the board? Objection has been noted. Is it debatable? Okay, it is debatable. Anybody wish to debate the request to speak? Okay, then we will proceed to vote on whether or not to allow Autumn
Prozuk, she lives in Wausau on First Avenue.
Okay.
Okay, so we're voting.
We'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is defeated. Or excuse me, the request is defeated. Now can we get... Supervisor Rosenberg, do you have another request?
I do have another request. I just need to pull it up here.
Okay, so speaker number 2.
I have a request for Patrick Bacher to speak.
Is there any objection? Objection's been raised. Any debate? We will proceed to vote. All those in favor of allowing Patrick to speak, aye. And we'll proceed. And the motion is failed. Do you have another request?
I do have another request. My request is for Jackson Seeger to speak.
Is there any objection? There's objection. Any discussion? Oh, Supervisor Robinson.
So let me understand the issue before us tonight. So we're asking to reconsider it because we've got new facts or new information, but yet we don't want to find if there are other new facts or new information from the public. Yes, it's late.
Time out, please.
Yes, it's late.
Please.
But we are a deliberative and transparent body, and we ought to be affording people the opportunity to share their views as to what those changes are. So I would encourage you to vote yes.
Okay, Supervisor Langenhahn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to Supervisor Robinson's comments, we have had new information. Our contact information is on the website. There have been ample opportunities to get in touch with us. In fact, I would even go as far as to say is that those contacts have prompted this reconsideration. So I would urge you to vote against more public comment this evening. Thank you.
Supervisor Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When this came up, it occurred to me, I knew one of the issues would be transparency, and because it's on a night when we typically don't have public comment, would it be out of order that we amend the original request to reconsider, to move it to a night when we could have public comment, rather than go through saying we can't have public comment because it's not our practice on voting needs?
The motion's on the table to reconsider. A motion to postpone to a date certain is an option and was spelled out in the email that went out to all the board supervisors. So at this point, I still have a motion on the floor, and I will deal with that motion, or the request to speak, and that will be voted on, and then we will dispense with any further requests that are brought forward by Supervisor Rosenberg, and then we will proceed to any either a vote on the motion to reconsider or any other motion that is available to this body, that is available under a motion to reconsider. So, Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little confused. Perhaps you could enlighten me. If we didn't have all the information after a subcommittee meeting, a committee meeting open to the public, informational meeting open to the public, and the business meeting where we voted on it, we didn't have enough information then apparently because we're reconsidering. But in the meantime, we got a few emails and a couple of letters, so there's new information, but now we've got enough again. Now we've got enough again. What's to stop it from coming back next month because somebody else emailed us? I mean, if we're gonna say there's new information, why are we closing the door now? That just makes no logical sense to me. Perhaps you could explain that to me.
First off, the ruling of the chair is what it was as far as whether or not the supervisors wish to ask for additional information, whether they feel they have additional information, that is their prerogative. Second, the question about And the question about bringing back the reconsideration moving forward over and over and over. And the answer to that is no, it cannot. Motion to reconsider is dealt with one time, and whatever the dispense is on that, if voted on that motion to reconsider, is ending. Supervisor Zerini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had several phone calls as well as emails, and people wanted to speak, and I told them there was no public comment tonight. So I voted no because there were other people that would have showed up as well. So it just doesn't seem fair to have one side speak and not have the total public have an opportunity.
I would echo that. I had, in the last 3 days, I've had 49 contacts of people that have contacted me, some in favor, some against, and I told them all that there was no public comment on this meeting. Now, I think it's disingenuous of myself to vote in favor to allow additional public comment on individuals when I told up to 49 people that they could not attend and public comment on this item. Supervisor Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask you, I'm not aware of this new information, so could you ask Supervisor Langenhahn what this new information is and reveal it to the board? I think that'd be important for us to know what this new information is so we can make a full rounded decision.
That's his discretion. All right.
Langenhahn?
I'm open to it. I said it's his discretion. If we cannot have the quorum, I will have this.
Yeah, it's my time on the floor right now. So with respect to Supervisor Lowe's questions, the day after the vote, I had no less than 3 phone calls, not including all of the correspondence that we got in the mail the past month, not including all of the emails that we've gotten the past month, not including all the editorials that have not stopped even until this day. I think that all of that is new information. I think that's what permits this reconsideration. But also keep in mind, I was not the one that made the motion to reconsider. I was simply pointing out that we have received more information since the vote was taken last month. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion or the vote on the request to speak of the third person? The third person that Supervisor Rosenberg had brought forward. Supervisor Krause.
Yes, I didn't receive any emails or any phone calls, anything from people in my district. I received 2 letters from outside my district, and they were basically religious-based. I wrote them back and I said, these people are citizens. They have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when they quoted the Bible and the Old Testament, I said Jesus came to include all of us, not just some of us.
Any further discussion on the motion before the board, before this body, as to a request to speak by the third person Supervisor Rosenberg brought forward? All right, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion fails. Do you wish to bring in additional requests?
I did tell these people that I would request that they be allowed to speak, so I'd like to honor that. My 4th person is Amaranth Rose. She would like to speak.
I'm sorry, I missed the name.
Amaranth Rose.
Amaris?
Amaranth.
Amran?
Yes,
Okay.
Amaranth.
Is there any objection? There's objection. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion has failed. And fifth,
Tricia Zunker.
Tricia Zonker, any objection? Objection? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed. Oops, Supervisor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I think we should let Tricia Zunker speak. She is the president of the school board. She is a member of the ACLU, and she is a Supreme Court Justice of the Ho-Chunk Nation. So it's not, she's just some resident of Marathon County. She is a very influential member of Marathon County. So I hope that you all vote yes to let her speak. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is defeated. And last.
My last request to speak is Joel Lewis.
Any objection? Objection noted. Any discussion? Supervisor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to point out that although public comment wasn't on the agenda, what we're witnessing right now is that even though it's not on the agenda, there is a process that at the will of the board, we can allow people to speak. And so I know that some supervisors did tell the public to come and did tell the public that we would try to get them to be able to speak. I don't think that it's poor discretion to vote against allowing them to speak simply because you told your constituents not to come. I think it's a disservice to tell constituents in general not to come and not to try to speak up when there is a process to allow them to do so. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed. And we'll proceed. And the motion is defeated. So we are back to the motion to reconsider. Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to take this piece off here. I did spend some time collecting my thoughts before I came here tonight. My printer did not work, so I'm going to have to read this off my phone. I'm not here to debate the merits of Pride Month. That happened last month, so I want to move past those discussions. I'm not here to engage in partisan rhetoric. I'm not here to force my opinions on anyone else here, and I do not enjoy seeing this board split behind a past decision. I find myself wanting to sort out my thoughts on the merits of reconsidering, and I'm hoping others might find some benefit in them before they vote this evening on the reconsideration. During this past month, this board has received lengthy correspondence from concerned Marathon County residents, a lot of correspondence. The editorials have not stopped, the phone calls have not ceased, and emails surrounding Pride Month are rather common in a county board member's inbox. I cannot imagine why someone would question the need to reconsider in light of the questions and some concerns that have ignited since its passage. I've been on this board for 6 years, and I can only think of 2 other issues that have created this much discussion, one of them being rural addressing and the other one being the healthcare expansion. Those were both very publicized and very well-debated subjects. I'll leave it at that. To say that the Pride Month resolution has been sufficiently debated and passed is a stretch of the truth. If it was, then the emails and the phone calls would have stopped and people would have moved on, but yet here we are. Is there value in reconsideration? Reconsidering a resolution is nothing more than evaluation and reflection. If one was to vote against the motion to reconsider, they would be denying your fellow supervisors' ability to express how they truly feel about this resolution. This board should not feel trapped. It's an active governing board that has its rights. I'd urge you to be respectful towards your fellow supervisor this evening. Mr. Chair, some community members have questioned the Marathon County Board's capacity to grapple complex issues in the face of this reconsideration. Listen, tough issues will not stop coming to this board. There's always a budget to be passed, an extensive capital improvement project to be approved, and whatever other resolutions that get placed on this agenda. We are elected with the trust of our constituents, and if this board needs to look at something again, we have every right to. I'd say that there is wisdom and value in reconsidering where this resolution has taken our community. Finally, Mr. Chair, life does not provide that many second chances. I'm not going to deny my fellow board members opportunity to truly express how they feel about this issue, because after tonight, it's done. You can't bring it up again. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I'm going to keep getting interrupted by the crowd, they're out of order.
This is the last time that I'm going to respectfully request that we have decorum out of the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let the votes fall where they may. Regardless how this vote turns out for reconsideration, I know that I can sleep at night knowing that I represent my constituents to the best of my abilities. I only hope that others can have the same peace of mind, and that's why I urge you to vote for the reconsideration and respect your fellow board member. Thank you.
Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, throughout this discussion, I hear a lot of individuals mention that they feel that the discussion there's additional information that needs to be brought up, and I feel that we need to have the input of the community. So I'm going to make a motion to table this resolution to reconsider this resolution to the next month to allow the community to further give more input. So I'm making that motion.
Second.
Please repeat the motion. I was trying to listen to the administrator because we had equipment failure for our public TV. It is being recorded, but it is not being televised live. So Supervisor Zhang, I apologize. Please repeat and restate your motion.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make a motion to table the reconsidering of the resolution recognizing June as Pride Month to the August meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded that we postpone to the August meeting the motion to reconsider the Pride Month resolution. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Leahy.
I think there's some confusion about what new information means in this situation to reconsider. If you're planning a party at Marathon Park on Tuesday, and Tuesday morning it's raining, you have to reconsider where you're going to have that party, that outdoor party, okay? That's new information. Retroactive peer pressure, negative comments, chastisement.
Excuse me, could you please keep your discussion to what the motion on the table is, and that is motion is to postpone.
Correct. To table, yes.
The table, postponed to date certain, is postponed to the August meeting.
Yes. As I was saying, there is no new information. There's only a continuation of the same information we've all been receiving. And tabling it isn't going to change that. We're only going to keep getting the same information from the same people, whether that's for or against. And we're just going to have this same conversation when it comes up again. So being an elected official is getting information from constituents. I should say, getting communication from constituents. So yes, we've had to answer phone calls and Facebook messages and emails and written letters. That's just part of what we do as elected officials. But those opinions are not new information. And tabling this is only putting off this conversation that we've been asked to have today. So I would definitely vote against tabling.
Supervisor Johnson.
I'll pass.
Supervisor Lowe. Nope. Yep. Supervisor Lowe.
My pass on this. Thank you.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
Thanks. I guess the only reason I would support this is for public input. And that is why I'm going to vote in favor of this. It's for public input. I would like to be done with this issue tonight, but we can't do that without the public. We need to know this new information, and I would like to give them an opportunity to speak.
Supervisor Miller.
I think most of us have heard a lot about why are we doing this, but why are we spending all this time? Come back, to try to influence people, try to take people's own thoughts away, their own wishes as to what they want in the world, in the community. So I can't support this. I think it's just dragging it out.
Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why I'm making this the motion to table this is I see a lot of individuals here in this room who's passionate about this, who feels that they want to put more of their own opinion here. Supervisor Zarini mentioned that there's multiple other individuals from the other side or those who oppose this resolution. I personally think both sides should have an equal opportunity to address the board. I know we talked about it at the last meeting, but it seems it's important enough to reconsider this resolution. So I asked this board to vote to table this resolution, this reconsideration to the next month to allow the community to further engage in this discussion and give us their opinion and feedback. Thank you.
Supervisor Krause.
Yes, I think it would be important to hear some more input from the public. I think it's part of the education process that goes on. How many of us know what these people are going through or have lived through from birth on, through their schooling, through their adolescence, through their adulthood? I think we need to know these things. If we're not going to have classes and learn about this as being responsive to people in our community, then we should hear them. We should hear what they have to say and educate ourselves on this.
Supervisor Guild.
Question on process. If we were to defeat the current motion, our next vote would then be to decide whether or not we tonight believe that this motion should be reconsidered.
Would be open.
Theoretically, if it does pass that we decide tonight that this does get reconsidered, are we then able to postpone the vote on the Pride Month resolution to a date certain next month?
I'll refer to Corp Counsel.
I believe that would be in order.
So we could have the discussion tonight about whether or not we are in the legally correct position to reconsider, and then if the majority decides that we are, we could then do a motion to postpone to next month.
You could do that motion, but of course it would face a vote.
Correct. Okay.
Supervisor Robinson.
Point of clarification, my understanding of motions to reconsider is that when we table to a time certain, we table the entire issue and the entire action. So in essence, this vote would do what you are seeking to do. So if you wanted, it suspends the action when you make the motion to reconsider and you table that motion to reconsider, you are tabling both the motion to reconsider and the original action to a date certain. So that gives us the ability at the next meeting to have that discussion. So I think if that's your desire, you should vote yes.
Supervisor Miller.
We have only one supervisor missing tonight. That's quite a high turnout. So I think if we vote on the original resolution, we will get as good an indication from supervisors as we're going to get. As to the motion to postpone, I call the question.
Is there any objection to question being called on the debate of on the motion to postpone to the August meeting, the motion to reconsider?
Correct.
There is no objection, then we will. I have a question, though. Time out.
All right, I do have a question. I just want to tell Supervisor Zhang that I want to spare us another argument about which meeting we're going to vote on and which meeting is the next successive meeting. So as I interpret your motion, we would postpone this to the educational meeting. We would take public comment, and we would then take action at that meeting. That's how I interpret your motion. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, clarification. So question's been called. This is just to end debate on the, no, excuse me, you don't need a vote. There was no objection. So
This is to postpone.
this motion on the floor is to postpone to the August meeting, the educational meeting, and we will be then having public comment, and then voting also will be posted as a voting meeting on the motion to reconsider. That's what's before you. We will proceed to vote. Supervisor McKeon, could you confirm, please? Thank you, and we'll proceed. And that is defeated. So the motion to postpone is defeated. We are back to the motion to reconsider on the floor. Is there any further discussion?
They don't have their things open yet. Okay, they can.
Is there any, Supervisor Beestrom?
Thank you, Chair. In making the motion, I prepared some comments, and I'm going to go through those. In the first place, I was not coerced to make this motion. I made it on my own ability and my own thinking. In my opinion, when we voted on the resolution, we voted for the right resolution, but we voted for it for all the wrong reasons. I support the LGBT community. The state of Wisconsin supports that community. It has passed over 2 years ago a resolution or a document with teeth in it that we not offend those people in our hiring practices, our retention practices, etc. This motion does not do that. It's only suggestive. It has no teeth. Secondly, this motion was forwarded to us, I felt, by people on our county board who were hoping to further their political aspirations. Secondly, I also felt that this motion or this resolution was forwarded to us for consideration by those who wanted to see the board divide, squirm, and sweat. My phone has been ringing, mostly constituents. They are not happy with me or the vote that I made. Most of them were surprised because I voted in favor. I wasn't, but because I'm listening to my constituents, I'm forced to change my mind. I represent them. I voted my heart the first time. I have to vote my constituency now. I listened to all the rhetoric and discussion at the committee meeting and at the board meeting. Very few that testified were from the LGBTQ community. But yet that's what the debate is about. That community did not bring this to us. But yet this is what the vote is about. If this motion to reconsider fails, so be it. If this motion to reconsider passes, then on the next vote on this resolution, I will vote no, and I will be at peace with myself, even though I changed my vote. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Supervisor Beastrom for explaining his motion to reconsider, because that was a question that I was going to ask, if the chair could ask Supervisor Beastrom to explain his reconsideration. Last month, I made the comment that passing this resolution would be a first step to making our economy better, because it would attract younger people to our area. And I believe in that. But you know what? It was not something that I came up with to sway this board in any way. This was told to us by the Wausau Chamber. This is our chamber. They had experts come in to tell us this. They invited us to their grand opening of their strategic plan for the year. That's what they did. So when I see my name in the city pages saying that I was coming up with some sort of joke, that is not something that I came up with, okay? That is something that was told to us by experts, by the Wausau Chamber. And we know better than this to be voting against something that's good for our economy. We know better than that. We know better that as elected officials, as just people, we know better than this. This is good for our university. This is good for our economy. This is good for our county. This is good for our state. So to reconsider, I mean, with new information, I disagree that this is new information, because this is information that we've heard over and over again from different constituents. It's the same information from different people. Thank you.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am surprised to hear about the objections to this resolution today. Obviously, you're talking about me, furthering my political career. I am running for another office. This is not the reason I would bring an issue like this forward. If I wanted to make my career easier, I would do all of the easy things that people like. This is hard. This did spur discussion. I did this sincerely because of my friends, my family, the people I work with, the chamber, economic outlook. That's a great thing that you brought up. So I feel a little offended. I've been called a Democratic activist. I've been called all kinds of things. No, this is from me. This is from my heart. I'm really pleased that we passed it, and I hope we can get beyond this and vote no to this reconsideration. I think it's better for our community when we're in this together and we support each other.
Supervisor Langenhahn.
I was going to call the question, Mr. Chair, but I'd rather let the next two people speak, so I'll retract.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, as I stated last month, it's a shame that it's this hard, and it's a shame that we are bringing it back again. Because when Supervisor Lowe talks about the chamber's outlook and the need to bring in young professionals, this is the target group, and as I sent the email to everyone last month, which kind of detailed that young millennials, they have a different attitude towards the LGBTQ plus community than the majority of the folks at this table. And the majority of the folks that wrote those letters and sent those emails and made those phone calls. We're not hiring a lot of 70 and 80-year-olds. And that's where a lot of those objections came from. A lot of older folks who aren't current with what this county needs as far as workforce goes. They may not understand the need for that young, diverse workforce. And it's hurting us. It's hurt us already that we've made news and then brought it back again, trying to get rid of it. You're just putting out a big red flashing light saying, if you're gay, if you're trans, if you're lesbian, don't come here because you're not welcome. That's not the message we need to send. It really is not. Just to reconsider it, just the fact that it's on the agenda tonight, this has hurt us every step of the way. And all of the objections that I've received, my communications have been about 50-50, a little bit, maybe 60-40 pro Pride resolution. The objecting ones all have a similar theme. Every one of them mentions their religious beliefs. And I think we need to clear up a little something here. Your religious beliefs are yours. They belong to each of us. They're what we believe. They govern our behavior. They govern our beliefs and our system of how we approach things. Your religious beliefs gives you no right to impose them on someone else. And let's be honest, that's what we're getting from the vast majority of the objective letters that are objecting to Pride Month. They almost all cite their religious stance as why they object to it. Well, nobody's telling them they have to be gay. Nobody's telling them they have to date a man, date a woman, anything like that. All they're saying is all we're saying is you have to be accepting of these people and value them as part of your community. Nobody's telling you have to do that, and they do not have the right. I'm sorry. Not one single elected official in the history of this country has ever put their hand on the Constitution and sworn to uphold the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, or any other holy book. To remember what we're here for. And if we're going to cut through all the baloney and get down to brass tacks, that's what we're dealing with here, is a religious prejudice against that lifestyle, against that type of behavior, against that community. And that community is part of us. And we can't afford to sanction that with governmental action saying, yes, you're right. You're right. We don't need those kind of folks here, because that is the message that is being sent loud and clear. And by revisiting this, you're throwing it up in the headlines again. You couldn't just leave well enough alone. It didn't hurt anybody. It didn't force anybody to do anything they didn't want to do. But it hurt their sensibilities. Well, I'm sorry, there's a bunch of snowflakes out there that are unhappy, but they need to get the heck over it and let people live their lives and get on with living theirs and stop worrying about everybody else's. So please, let's not revisit this. Let's let it die, let it go away, let it end, let it stand that June is Pride Month. It can only help this county. So please vote against the reconsideration, and let's dispose of this and be done with it. It can't come back again if we vote against it tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Durham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had a lot of discussion about new information and so forth, and I kind of find myself in the same position as Supervisor Beestrom. I know how difficult the decision was for him, and I respect all of my colleagues and the opinions that we've had. But for me, when I came to this decision, how I voted, I voted for it. It wasn't easy. Some of you know that I spent my life trying to teach history, American history, studying it. I'm not saying I'm an expert historian or anything, but one thing that always interested me was the struggle of the blacks after the Civil War to become citizens. I mean, real citizens. And you study that, and it's incredible, the story. And so we get a lot of information in the letters. You know, well, in 1982, Wisconsin was the first state to protect the LBGT community, okay? Well, that's real nice and good, but think back. The newly freed slaves were protected by the 14th and 15th Amendments passed in 1868. What happened between 1868 and the 20th century? Did you ever study that a little bit? And the battle that it took, how they were reduced to almost to serfdom, really, in the South. And what they had to do, and how bitter that struggle was. When you read about Brown versus the Board of Education that reversed, you know, Plessy versus Ferguson, you think that was the end of it? That was a victory and it's all clear cut? No. And there were 5 cases that clustered in that. And the people that won those cases, they were driven out of their communities, blacks, because they wanted some buses for their kids too, not just white kids, and so on. Could go into all kinds of details. So don't assume, because we have certain laws, that it's all going to be, anything we can contribute, I think, is important. And, well, you can look at the history of the United States. There's some things that we tend to ignore, or we just don't know them, or whatever. But it isn't just blacks. It's been Mexicans. It's been Japanese Americans in World War II. I mean, it could go on. I could lecture you all night about that. And I'm not going to do that. But I'll bet you that there's hardly anybody here that has heard of the massacre that took place in 1915 in southern Texas. Maybe you have. Have you ever heard about the deportation in Bisbee, Arizona, 1917? You know, look at some of those things, and you can see what we're capable of in this society. And I'm not saying today, but it happened. We're the successor. We've got to reconcile to those things. And we have not really done that. That's just my opinion from studying it. Thank you. I hope that it's been a divisive issue, but I just think that so far, my opinion, we've done the right thing. And I hope we continue. Thank you.
Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We can look at this issue on 2 fronts. One front is obviously on the emotional side, where we think about all our loved ones, we think about all the individuals who are part of the LGBTQ community, or we could look at this from the statistics side or economic development side. I just want to start off by naming a few individuals. Leland Elkhorn, age 17. Jaden Bell, age 15. Jamie Hubley, age 15. Jamie Rodemeyer, age 14. These are a few of the individuals or adolescents of the LGBTQ community who has committed suicide in the last 10 years. You know, these are just some of the names of these individuals who questions and who, you know, were bullied or felt unwelcome in their community. Statistics have shown that suicide among the LGBTQ community is higher than the general populations, and members of the LGBTQ community or adolescents has the highest number of suicide attempts. Think about the message that we are sending. We have Hmong Heritage Month, Indigenous Peoples Day, Hmong American Veterans Day, but giving a month to the LGBTQ community seems to be so controversial. Again, this resolution is not asking you to come out and say whether you're supportive of the LGBTQ community. It's basically asking you to say that as long as you are a contributing member to the Marathon County, making it a prosperous, healthiest, and safe community, you will be welcome here. You know, in our strategic plan, objective 3.3, one of our objectives was to make sure that every children to every child make it to adulthood with health, stability, and growth opportunities. I think this board, by passing a resolution recognizing the LGBTQ community, or recognizing June month as LGBTQ month, sends a strong message to our children, the future generations, that whatever they feel, whoever they are, whether it's their sexual orientation, they will be welcome here. And in order for a community to grow and become more prosperous, we need to have a stronger taxing base. And in order for this to happen, we need to be able to be a welcoming and inclusive community to attract younger individuals to participate, to move to Wausau here and Marathon County here, and make sure that Marathon County is the right place for you to live, begin your family, begin your career, and start your business. And I ask my fellow colleagues to vote against the reconsideration. Thank you.
Supervisor Leahy.
Thank you. I do think it's important to state again that like these other resolutions that we are talking about, Hmong Heritage, Indigenous Peoples Day, this Pride resolution went through the same process to get to the full board as all of the rest. I went back and actually compared it to Indigenous Peoples Day just because that was the month prior in May. And it followed the exact same pattern in number of days in between going from committee, going to the oversight committee, getting to the full board in the educational meeting, and then to the voting meeting. To say that this was rushed or hasty in comparison to any similar resolution is just not true. It almost, I mean, obviously we've seen so much public comment, more so than most of us see at our regular standing committee meetings. To say that the public wasn't informed, to say that they didn't have time to contact their representatives, I think is also false and dangerous to spread that idea in the public eye as well. This went through the proper process to get where it got. We were all very informed and had plenty of time to do other research on our own to be well informed to vote. That's our job, is to know what we're about to vote on. And some of that is on us. It has to happen outside of this room. So I also, again, would just like to encourage everyone to vote against reconsideration and to let this important resolution stand. Thank you.
Supervisor Seiler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been some comments which I can only speak for my district at this point, that the people that may have reached out to the supervisors are old and of a certain generation and have certain convictions of faith. I'm not saying that there may not have been some of that, but let me tell you a little bit about my district. It's probably the largest district in the county. It's very rural, hardworking people of all ages, a lot of young people making their living in the rural communities. And I'm going to paraphrase because this was almost to a person as far as the emails and the phone calls or the one-on-one communication I received from my district. And basically it was, please don't do this. Don't elevate one segment of the population over another, and not for an entire month. Our veterans get 1 day. I think that was one of the things that just really appalled people. And and again, these are good people. There was no nastiness. They were just saying, why do we even need this? And when I first heard of this, I did call Supervisor Zhang and I said, you know, a resolution like this at this time, if we're going to really make a positive difference in the community for everyone, then we need to have a community conversation, not a resolution of words that are going to be divisive because the topic is clearly controversial. This is the perfect opportunity. We have a wonderful resource here at the WIPS, the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy. They are so skilled at having conversation, all voices to the table on issues that can be and are very controversial, and have people get to know one another as people. Why couldn't that have been explored? This is so sad to see community members against one another, board members against one another. One of the strengths of the whips is having people, civil discourse on topics that are difficult. That's what should have been done. This is not good for anyone. There are no winners here. But my district, please don't, I take offense to say that people in my district are closed-minded and cruel, because they're not. Thank you.
Supervisor Krause.
Thank you. I don't know if this issue has been addressed or not, but there is that fear of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transvestite, and queers. Who wants to live in a house next to them, into an apartment next to them, sit next to them in school or at church? Who wants to go to a party and meet with them? Who wants to work with them? There's this fear, this phobia of what are they like? What are they going to do? I don't want to know. Don't want to know them. Don't want to have to deal with them. And it's an issue of change. Our society is changing. People are changing, especially the younger generation. I'm from the North. I never saw a black person. I went to teach in Cleveland, Ohio, in a school of 800 blacks in a total black community. The only white person was the principal and a teacher's aide and me in this entirely black neighborhood, black school. You don't think I had fear going in, driving in there, and teaching in that school with all blacks, even though they were little children? I had fear. And when I came to this community, I saw all these Asians. Do you think I felt uncomfortable? Oh, yes, I did. Now I have them as my neighbors. I see them in school. I work with them, etc. You get over these things, but you have to deal with the discomfort. You have to deal with the unfamiliar. You have to deal with a different kind of culture. And it's the same with the gay community. It's a different culture. It's a progress of changing and growing as human beings. I just thought I'd mention that. Thank you.
Supervisor Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I'm sitting here after I spoke the first time, I just want to say that I was wrong, that there is new information that I did receive between our vote and now. So the new information that I did receive is that I had a constituent call me, and the new information that I received is that people from Africa in a war-torn country, they were subject to these people who went looting and killing people. And so then these people, they gave the African people AIDS. And that because this constituent worked for the military, they saw all these people in the hospital die from AIDS. And not only that, but then these people with AIDS, they're going to swim across the Atlantic Ocean and travel up South America to our border and come and give us AIDS. That's the new information that I received, which I think is crazy, it's ludicrous, it's false. Another thing that was told to me is that because of how I debated last time, someone was going to run against me and get me out of office. And I said to that person, that is great. I was like, you know what? I welcome the election process because that is why my parents fought for the United States during Vietnam and came here because they believed in the Western process, okay? They believed in the election process because that was not given to them when they were in a communist country. I believe that. So if anyone wants to run against me in the next election, I welcome it. If anyone wants to run against any one of you too, I welcome it. Another thing is I was also told that someone is afraid of losing their seat if they voted the wrong way. Well, if you're afraid to lose your seat, then maybe you shouldn't be here. Maybe you shouldn't be voting this way. Because we live in a democracy, there's an election process, and so if you don't welcome the election process, maybe you shouldn't be here. And my last comment is, there have been threats out there against county board members. Because not only was I sent a piece of mail that said and underlined that those who support those who practice abomination, those who support them also deserve death, okay? That was sent to my home. You know what? All of my contact information, that is public. It's fine. Constituents can send me what they want. I am fine with that. But that line of thinking for other residents that live in Marathon County, private residents, that is scary. For me, that's fine. For other residents, that is scary and that is unacceptable. So I'm putting that out there. We have been threatened with death, biblical, versus saying that those who support these abominated people deserve death, okay? That is what we're dealing with here. So I'm putting that out there. We should all be accountable for that. And when we're talking about respect of our other fellow board members, to tell our constituents that they don't have a voice here in our meeting because we are representatives of Marathon County, to vote no, that the people that are here tonight, that they want to speak, to vote no, to not allow them to speak, that is not respecting a fellow board member because we represent people in Marathon County. Now, letting our constituents speak, that'd be respect. That would be respect through our constituents. Thank you.
Supervisor Robinson.
Last month, we joined many other communities and organizations in recognizing June as Pride Month. Stevens Point, neighbor to the south, the Wisconsin State Assembly, which is, people have argued that this is a partisan issue. It's controlled by the Republicans, but it passed on a voice vote, recognizing the inherent dignity of individuals and their worth and the struggles that they've been through and trying to get some resolution. I've received a number of calls, and quite honestly, most of them are in support. I received one from my cousin who was not in support. And he went off on, well, you're a Christian, you believe in the Bible. And I said, well, when I took my office, I swore to uphold the Constitution. And in that brings equality for all individuals. And there has been inequality throughout time. But in our haste to try to respond to people who have not read the resolution, we need to tell them what the resolution says. It is outlandish because it calls for inviting people to reflect on ways that we can live and work together with a commitment to mutual respect and understanding. How foreign. I think that the chair did an outstanding job of trying to pull together opportunities for this board to educate itself, to deal with issues of implicit and explicit bias that are here in this community, that preclude us from having rational discussions with individuals because we are looking to cloud the issues. This board has already declared June as Pride Month. We cannot take that back. Read the rest of the resolution, now therefore be it resolved. And we're going to commit to utilizing the public engagement methodology to discuss how specific county government policies and practices can be changed or adopted to ensure Marathon County lives up to the goal of being a welcoming and inclusive to all people. Isn't that what we should be for? A motion to reconsider takes that off the table. Do we want to, in our zest to be the healthiest, safest, and most prosperous county, want to disenfranchise others, to take away opportunities for us to engage people constructively on a path forward? I urge you to vote no.
Supervisor Wagner.
Some very interesting things have happened since we started talking about this to me as an individual. And for instance, being personally attacked from the podium at the meeting by name and by issue by someone who has no idea who I am or what I stand for. I appreciate the chair responding to that, even though it was delayed by a fire alarm. The sides of every issue have three sides: those dramatically for, those dramatically against, and the 80 or 90% in the middle that can take it or leave it, or don't feel passionate enough to get into it. Again, before people, the constituents, some for or against, even had any idea who Romy Wagner was as a person and what I stand for, they jumped to judgment. The pro-LGBT crowd felt I was against it because of the committee meetings where I asked a motion for it to be delayed a month for discussion. It wasn't because I was against it, but they never gave me an opportunity to say that. I definitely will not be making any analogies tonight because even though I defend the analogy I used, I didn't get a chance to explain how it fit in. I stand by my vote for this, and I do think we should let it stand and vote against the reconsideration. And I want to bring to the attention of everyone the kind of phone calls that I got from the people who know me. I got calls from mothers and fathers of people thanking me for standing up, that they didn't have not courage is a bad word because I think they're very courageous, but they didn't have the internal ability to not stand alone and be out there. But they were encouraged by the fact that I could take an attack like that. And I guess the blogs beat me up pretty well too, but after being on the city council for 8 years, I learned not to watch those. But again, coming from the people who I value, who I would go to for advice, are the ones that came to me with logic. The ones that were against that Pride Month, I listened to them, we talked, we discussed. The ones that didn't know me screamed at me, sent me the hate mail and all the things after I voted the way I did. But just this past weekend, a young couple comes up to me and thanks me for supporting. It isn't just the 3.8% of the population that qualifies as an LGBTQ+, but it's all their family members. So maybe it's 25 or 30% of our population that's affected by it. It's the employees. Yes, I have employed members of the community. I have friends that are members of the community. Some of them act a little outside what it would be to be considered normal or whatever at times when they drink the same way other people do. But again, it isn't just the 3.8% of the people who identify themselves. It's their immediate family, relatives, friends.
And I'd like to have everyone vote not to bring this back, to let it stand, because at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt anyone to do it. It hurts a lot of people if we don't give them the right to be acknowledged. That's probably more than I planned to say, but I hope it was received a little better than the comments that came were misinterpreted of mine in the past. I still believe that if I offended someone, I'd be the first one to apologize to them. And the blogs, the different attacks I've had, not one single person has come and said, I read you wrong, I'm sorry. And that's what bothers me about the issue, that you need to, Gary wanted to bring this thing back. We're going to vote different on this. We will stay associates and friends through this whole thing because we have a different opinion. And that's the respect we need to give each other. None of us are afraid of why we do it or not do it. We have to have the confidence to stand behind our reasoning for doing it. And I appreciate the fact that I have this chair. I look forward to any opposition. Elections are wonderful. That's the process. But again, we need to put this decision we made a month ago behind us, and we need to move forward. We talk about not regurgitating things that cause us problems. Well, let's put this to bed tonight and vote against reconsidering it. Thank you very much for your time.
Supervisor Tremelling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call for the vote because otherwise I'm going to have to call Jimmy John.
Is there any objection? You're calling the previous question to end debate, is that correct? Okay, is there any objection? There is one person on the queue, and that was Vice Chair McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my opinion has not changed from my previous vote. I did vote against it. I know Supervisor Stark went around and talked to actually people in his neighborhood and his constituents. I did receive emails asking me to support it. I know 3 of them were actually in my district. I did the same thing that Supervisor Stark did. I went around, actually looked at the people that signed my nomination papers just to make sure I had the addresses. I went around and talked to them, and it was 3-1 to vote no. And I received many thank yous for voting no from the people that I did talk to. And I do agree with Supervisor Wagner that we should respect each other. I just would hope that you did do your footwork and go out and actually pound on doors and talk to people, because the people that showed up here, I know are passionate for us to vote for it. Some are passionate not to, but the people that I have to listen to are the people in my constituents, that are in my district and my constituents. Those are important people to me. And I know where Supervisor Beestrom's going by getting, listening to his constituents. We have to do that. We have to listen to our constituents. And overwhelmingly, the people that are in my district might be different than everybody else's, but definitely thank me for voting no and encourage me to vote no again. And a lot of them, there were people like Supervisor Wagner said, they didn't care. I mean, it was probably that 80%. It's like, why are you wasting your time on this? And to me, you guys aren't wasting your time. This is passionate for you, but for them, that was their response. And I'm not going to fault them for that. So I would encourage you to reconsider and do vote for the reconsider of this vote so that we can put it to rest. Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak, but I will. Democracy is messy, isn't it? Look at this. We've had people pack this room, passionate one way or the other. The thing that disappoints me the most is the personal attacks that I've seen because people are passionate, but the personal attacks when people don't even know why somebody voted the way they do or the way they didn't. but they're going to attack them anyway. That's totally contrary to what this resolution's about. This resolution was supposed to be a great thing. And yet we can go and personally attack supervisors for voting one way, for voting the other way, attacking a supervisor for what they said without knowing the person's heart. That disappoints me. That really disappoints me. I understand people are passionate and people have, I received in the last 3 days over 49 communications. 9 of those communications were in favor and 40 were against. But people don't know me. I spent 6 years in the Air Force defending the right of every person in this country to the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I spent 3 more years in the Guards. I've served this on the county board for 16 years, going to be, 14 years. To criticize somebody for the way they vote on an issue that they have passion on is wrong. It is wrong in so many ways. We used to have a decorum, and I want to extend my sincere thanks to the audience here tonight. They have done a great job. Had to have a few moments, but they've shown respect. And yet, in some cases, us as board members, we haven't. Us as board members started attacking other board members for the way that they voted. That's democracy, folks. We live in the United States. I wasn't sure what I was going to say. I had written out a huge speech. People sit and people voted their conscience. People voted and said based on religious reasons. People said on the opposite side, this is a personal choice. Where's government? Why should government be involved? All of those are personal reasons for those individuals to take what they learned in their lifetime and chose to vote the way they did. I'm not going to be the one that criticizes why they vote the way they do. I am not that person. I want to listen to everyone's rationale, listen and discuss, and what is in your heart is what makes a difference in this world. So, since the question has been called and there was no objection, we will proceed to the motion, on the motion to reconsider. On the motion to reconsider, an aye brings the resolution back to the floor as it was passed in June, on June 25th. Are we ready to vote? Again, an aye brings the resolution back to the table on the floor. A no vote would leave it stand. Proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is failed. Please, please. Moving on, announcements and/or requests. Item L. Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I just want to thank you for your words that you said at the end there. There was a saying that said that I may disagree with what you said, but I will fight to the death to ensure that you are able to protect your freedom of speech. So thank you for those words. In conclusion, I just want to invite everybody to the Motorized Festival that's going to be occurring this weekend. It will be at the East Bay Sports Complex. It will be. I would ask that if any county supervisors planning on coming, please arrive at the curling club by the flags by 8:45 at latest. That's when the governor is planning to arrive, and we will be doing our ceremony as well. And we will have lunch for all the dignitaries and elected officials at 12. So if everybody can join us on that for this weekend, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Supervisor Christensen.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Excuse me, just to remind everybody of the Towns Association meeting, the Combined Towns Association meeting at the Rib River Ballroom. In the email, they had Rib Mountain Ballroom, but it's the Rib River Ballroom on Thursday night. Lunch is at 6:15, and the meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Supervisor Seefeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting a week from today is the Wisconsin Valley Fair. I hope everybody can come out and see all the kids bringing their 4-H projects in. It's a wonderful sight to see. Our entertainment is a pretty good lineup. I hope you can make it out there and come and see the PPA tent at the fair. So make it out there, and I'll be walking around the grounds. You just hunt me down and say hi. Thank you.
Supervisor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this past weekend during the storms, there was a fire at the Lazy Acres trailer park in my district. And unfortunately, a gentleman passed away in the fire. His wife of 68 years was able to escape the fire, but she's basically left with nothing. So there is a GoFundMe. I helped the family set that up. So if anyone's interested in donating to that, I do have it on my county board Facebook page. It's also on like the Pilot and Review. A lot of different news outlets shared it as well, or I can send the link too. So think about donating to the family. Thank you.
Supervisor Krause.
Thank you. As part of the Health and Human Committee, Health and Human Resources Committee, I'd like to mention that on August 13th, there's going to be a meeting on various kinds of climate change and safe sunscreen. Fibromyalgia is one of 100 different kinds of arthritis, and the most common being fibromyalgia. The meeting is at the library August 13th, second Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, any other announcements? We need signatures from the Administrator, County Board, Forest Rec Committee, Environmental Resources Committee, Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, and Park Commission. I will take the infamous motion, and we have Supervisor Robinson and Supervisor Zhang with a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.